Hello, folks. Welcome back. Cognitive Awareness with a Touch of God. Today, episode 9, we're dealing with how to cope with triggers, anxieties, and panic attacks. Essentially, folks, what we're doing is we're taking episode 8's Triggers podcast, and we're just going to expand on it a little bit more. We're going to talk to you about how we can actually start learning to cope with these issues. So, a quick review. Triggers are essentially words spoken or actions taken around us that bring up something from the past that we haven't quite coped with or we haven't figured out how to deal with. Triggers also create a physical response from our bodies sometimes. More times than not, they're going to create some sort of tension or body heat increase. It's interesting, science has already figured this out, that what we think can be what we feel physically, not just emotionally. So when we have triggers happen, there's a good chance that our body is going to give us a sign telling us that we've just been triggered. Okay, a lot of times it could be just tension. Our chest hurts, we're short of breath, our ears start to feel like they're burning, or we start sweating, okay? Anxieties create this. When someone's going to do an interview and they hate doing interviews because they're not comfortable talking to people, once they start talking to somebody, they might start sweating, or they get nervous twitches, or they jitter. So anxieties and triggers all can stem from the same situation. So what we're going to do today is kind of review one of the worksheets that we have accessible for you through Dropbox as a free gift. We're not going to charge you for worksheets or handouts or anything. The idea is listen for free, heal for free. So in this one worksheet, what we're trying to do is recognize the events that happen and to pull them back and to be able to dissect it so that we can figure out if it happens again, that we actually have skill set to be able to cope and deal with it when it happens next time, if it ever happens again. So there's this thing called a typical sequence of events, essentially patterns. What are the patterns that occur? And what are the things that are creating my anxiety or panic attack from these triggers? So what we have to do is real simply, it's an ongoing questions and answers worksheet. So question number 1 is, what are your common triggers? So you give us a list, a short list. Give me 2. Why not just 1? Just give me one of your triggers. Something that you know when somebody does something or when you do something, if you stub your toe or if somebody calls you a name or if somebody says, hey, let's go get high. Give me a list of any of your triggers. We're going to attack this only one trigger at a time because there's no reason to try and get 3 or 4 or 5 triggers and try to squeeze them all into one conversation. We're trying to figure things out one step at a time. So if you have a piece of paper or if you've downloaded this worksheet, you're going to see the number 1 bullet is what are your common triggers? So you'll list it. But let's focus on one trigger. And the next bullet underneath that is what were your physical responses to that trigger? So I'm going to run a quick example. Back when I was married, many years ago, I was in computers, so I knew a lot about computers and computer concepts and software and hardware and everything. Okay, I was basically a geek, and I was married to a woman who had to use computers for her job. Unfortunately, we weren't exactly healthy beings. On occasion, she would be drinking and trying to work on the computer, and then she would ask me a question about the computer. Why can't it do this? Why can't it do that? And then I would give her a response. I would tell her what the answer is. And then she would respond to me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not how it's done. This is how it's done. So my trigger in those situations was not that she was telling me I didn't know what I was talking about, but her telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about. That brought triggers to me from my childhood. I was the youngest of 4 children. And when people would ask me my thoughts or my opinions, I would share them. And when I did, my older siblings would essentially either laugh at me or tell me that I'm an idiot, tell me I'm stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. You're such a jerk. You're such an idiot. So as a child, I wasn't provided with the proper skill set to be able to cope with that and to deal with it and to make sure that it doesn't affect me moving forward in life. You know, the typical, oh, just ignore them. They don't know what they're talking about. You know, that doesn't work when you're 5, 6, 7 years old and looking to find somebody to guide you. And the only people that guide you keep telling you that you're an idiot or a jerk or you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. So when my ex-wife would present me with those moments, I would clench my fists instantly. There would be no gap in between. When her words came out, it's like my shoulders shrugged up. I could feel my back tense and my muscles tighten. I could feel my neck starting to hurt. And my fists would tense up and I would get so frustrated because I didn't know how to respond. And the only way I could respond was through my usual behaviors. because that's all I knew. The patterns of my behavior. For me, a common trigger was being told that I'm stupid or worthless or you don't know what you're talking about. My physical response was my muscles tightening up, pain being caused to me physically because I didn't heal from a trigger. The worksheet will then go on to step number 2, and it'll say, what was your next thought or feeling? So this is where we start dissecting our triggers. And I mentioned this in the Triggers podcast before. Dissecting our triggers is kind of like what we did in school with a frog. They had us cut a frog open for whatever reason and look at the insides to see what's actually inside the frog. So I'll keep using that crazy analogy. So I'm going to cut open my trigger and dissect and find out, why is it happening? So what was my next thought after my body tightened up? My next thought might have been, God, can't you just leave me alone? I know what I'm doing. Don't make me doubt myself. And in that process, the next question is, what was your physical response to that? Did your tension loosen up, or did it get even more tense? Did you start hitting the table? Did you start smacking yourself in the face, hitting your head, trying to wonder what the hell is this person doing to me? What was your next physical response to that next thought? Then we go to step 3, which repeats step 2. What was your next thought or feeling? Maybe you jumped from being physically distraught to, all right, that's it. Somebody's going to get it. I'm going to go up there and punch them. I'm going to punch the wall. I'm going to kick the floor. I'm going to break my leg. I'm going to try to substitute this pain inside my heart for a physical pain that'll get me past this. Or maybe it was, damn, I need a drink. The only way I can cope with this person is by drinking. Once we get past that next thought or feeling, then we have to look at what was our physical response again. Did we finally let the air out of our lungs? Oh, God, please. Just let me breathe. Just let me breathe. Or did we say, let's get out of here. I'm just leaving. I can't deal with this. I gotta go. What was our next thought? How did we feel about that? Did we feel any better? Did we feel worse? Where was our mind going? And again, was there another physical response to it? Did it get better or did it get worse? That's what this process is. But the best part about this is the more you can pull it back or dissect it and find out what you behaved like, the actions you took, then you can kind of start pulling it back, seeing what your thoughts and feelings were each time something happened. And when you can see that, when you can start seeing the pattern, then take another item, take another trigger, start filling out another sheet for another trigger, and do the dissection. What's the trigger? And what was your physical response? Once you figure that out, then go, okay, then what was your next thought or feeling about it? Where did you go from there? After the trigger occurred, where did you go? Physically, emotionally, spiritually? And then what happened after that? Physically. Sometimes we hear people saying things, and it triggers our ears to start burning. Earlier in the podcast, I was saying some people go to interviews and they struggle with anxieties. The anxiety that I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. And I'm putting myself in a situation that's going to show everybody the truth. And we start to panic. Our ears start to get on fire. I've been there. It took a lot of years for me to get past that and to be able to talk in front of people at any given situation. But it wasn't because it was magic. It was because I had to work hard on it. And I had to take something like a trigger. My ears caught on fire when I went to an interview. That's a trigger. Your physical response was real simple. My ears felt like they were burning. I started sweating. What was your next thought and feeling as you were sitting down in front of that interviewer? Was it, oh, I got this. Piece of cake. Interview, done. Got the job. That's me. Or was it, there's no way they're going to hire me. There is no way that they are going to actually hire me. They can see me sweating, which then, of course, just exasperated that anxiety and brought more panic to me, which made me sweat more. And then all of a sudden I could feel my armpits dripping with sweat. And I know that if I lift my arm up, they will see a sweat ball under my armpit. And they'll definitely not hire me because I don't do well under pressure. What was my next thought? My next feeling? Then they asked me a question. I stumbled. Oh, great. Now you don't even know what to say. Good job, Bear. Good job. They're definitely not hiring you now. Then what did you do? You started fidgeting in your seat, shifting so that they could see that you're nervous. They could smell that you're nervous because your body odor is increasing. Then what did you think after that? What were your feelings after that? How did it bring you to where you are today? Then what you can do after you recycle some of these triggers, after you compare them, look at them together, put them side by side, maybe 3, 4, 5 triggers that you have written down and dissected. Put them all side by side and read what each layer is. Step 1. What was the trigger? What was your physical response to trigger number 1? What was your physical response to trigger number 2, number 3, number 4? And then let's take a look at what was your next thought and feeling for trigger number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. You will actually start seeing a pattern of behaviors from you, a pattern of thoughts and beliefs from you when these triggers arise. To be able to see them and read them helps us really integrate the solution to the problem. It's to find the patterns, recognize the patterns, find the patterns, then work on trying to change those patterns. Worksheets like this sometimes are critical. Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to do paperwork, if anybody wants to start having a booklet or a binder filled with stuff. But I'm here to tell you, 24 weeks straight, cognitive therapy, big binder in my possession. I still have it and I still reflect on it. The good thing is now, today, after 18 years, I have it in my head because I've studied it for 18 years. I know what my triggers are. I know what I do physically when those triggers occur. And I know how to stop them before the triggers occur. I know how to prevent stuff from happening because I've studied my triggers so much that I recognize when a moment is starting to happen and that I can change the way the outcome is because I have the choice to change. I believe I'm healthy, therefore I choose to be healthy, and I choose to stay on the path of healthy. And I choose to never go back to alcohol. I choose to never be arguing with somebody about something so frivolous as a piece of software. So it's time to really dig in and dissect our situation. Dissect these triggers. Find out where the anxiety comes from. Find out where the panic comes from. And folks, you are all going to know it's a pattern of behavior. And if you remember anything from the early podcasts, our behaviors are a product of our emotions, which are created from our thoughts, which stem from a belief system. A belief system that says we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're not amounting to anything, we don't deserve anything good. If you have a belief system like that, you're going to have a lot of triggers. If you have a belief system like that, you're not going to be healthy and free from your addiction. So finding these triggers and dissecting them will allow us to see the pattern down to the belief that we may have, the belief that we instilled in ourselves as a child, or somewhere in our young adulthood, or even as an adult in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. Because through the struggle of employment, the struggle of work, paying bills, we sometimes will develop new struggles and new addictions and create new triggers for us. So it doesn't matter how old you are, and it doesn't matter where the trigger comes from. The fact is we've got to find where it comes from so that we can actually get to that moment and try to cope with it and clear it and forgive ourselves for stumbling. Forgive ourselves for not having the right information. To forgive others for giving us no help. To forgive others from steering us down into a trigger. Forgive others for not being a part of our healthiness. Forgive those people that are asking you to take that hit, to go for a drink. It's time for change and we're going to make it happen. So thank you folks for listening in. Again, this was learning how to cope with our triggers so that we can better handle our anxieties or panic attacks. The more we understand it's from within, the easier it's going to be to find the solutions. When you want to put blame and shame on everything outside of you, then it's not going to heal. You're not going to be in a healing state. You have to understand, folks, it's part of our belief system. That's why we took that hit. There are people on social media asking questions. What was it that brought you to your addiction? What was the trigger for you? What was the action that happened? Why did you take that first drink? Why are you addicted to social media? When you look at every situation, you can pull it all the way back down to the core, and you're going to find out that it's a belief system, that we're not deserving. Why do people put selfies on their social media page looking like they're hot and the men have the nice little ripped tummies and the girls have the chest picture and their kissy lips? And why do you think people are doing that? Do you think it's because they feel really confident in themselves? Or do you think it's because they're actually feeling and believing that they're lacking and they need to cover up for it? So they need to put on a mask for everybody. Take a look at me. I'm happy, but I'm not. I'm miserable inside. These actions that we take are from a belief system that's less than healthy. It's up to us to look at things like our triggers and to analyze them and to write it down, to see it so that we can more quickly integrate the solutions. Integrate meaning make it part of your everyday life. I have integrated this worksheet into my life. I know when I get physically affected by a trigger. And so I have a real good time having fun. Yeah, I said it. I sometimes have a lot of fun when I see a trigger on its way to me. Kind of like, oh, I see you coming. I see you coming, but I'm not letting you in today. You know, that's how much fun it can be when you get into a healing place. Excellent, folks. Thank you very much. Downloading these PDF files so that you can print them out and start working on your own worksheets is available through Dropbox. I'll be attaching that link with the podcast information. So if you're not sure where to get it, you can just go back to the podcast app that you have, look at the podcasts, see each episode, and in the definition of the episode, there's going to be a URL, a website page that you can go and grab those things from Dropbox. I thank you very much, folks, for all of your attention. For the fact that you're listening means that you are desiring a path to health, happiness, and recovery, and that we are going to be doing this together, walking the path together from a former alcoholic to whoever you are with whatever situation you have. I send you my love, my support, my admiration, because here you are trying. One step at a time, folks. We love you. We bless you, and we behold the light shining inside you. Thank you very much. God bless you, and we'll talk to you later.